We may be getting an early indication of the dangers facing red state incumbents for supporting the proposed budget cuts in President Trump's mega bill. At the top of the list, re-election challenges. Iowa Senator Joni Ernst's controversial "we're all going to die" comment has just inspired a Democrat to run against her. Professional baseball player and state lawmaker J.D. Scholten, who's run for Congress before, we should say, now says that he heard her comment while he was on his way to a funeral, and her sarcastic apology was the last straw. Ernst defended herself on Capitol Hill just yesterday, which was the fourth day of what's become a lingering controversy.
I'm very compassionate, and you need to listen to the entire conversation.
Do you have any
Can you
regrets about that?
explain your protect the most vulnerable?
Back with us, NBC's Vaughn Hilliard, former Republican Congressman Carlos Curbelo, an MSNBC political analyst. And joining me here is Julie Roginski, Democratic strategist and author of the Salty Politics newsletter on Substack. You never know, Julie, what's going to catch fire, right? This has caught fire. People are talking about it. If you were advising a Democratic challenger or even a Republican primary challenger, do you use this against her? Does it show up in all the ads, or you just let it play itself out?
Well, both, right? I mean, what's the phrase? The Lord helps those who help themselves. And the reality is you have to help yourself here. And the fact is that this woman not only went out and said something really dumb, for which she should have immediately come out and apologized and said, look, I screwed up. I made a mistake. This is not what I mean, and moved on from this controversy. It would have ended up in Democratic campaigning ads regardless, but it wouldn't have become the scandal that it is if she hadn't then walked through a cemetery mocking people who are rightly concerned about losing their health care, losing access to their rural hospitals.
And potentially losing their lives.
And effectively saying, well, you know, if you believe in the tooth fairy, you believe that you're going to live forever, and kind of mocking her constituents who have real concerns about this and about having access to health care in hospitals and about dying. And so, look, you can't out-Trump Trump. And I think there's a problem here for some of these Republicans who think that if they go down the path that Donald Trump has, where he just mocks everybody and thinks everything's a joke, that they're going to have the same kind of Teflon reaction that Trump has. And you can't. He's sui generis. They're not. And this is not Joni Ernst. This is so antithetical to who she's been her entire career that the fact that she's leaning into this MAGA Trump nonsense only makes her look that much more disingenuous.
Carlos Ernst comments to reporters on the Hill saying that we just heard her going into the elevator, that, you know, iconic elevator closing door shot. But she said she's very compassionate. She wants to protect the most vulnerable. Far less sarcastic than the apology video she released when she talked about the tooth fairy. Does that suggest that she now realizes this might be a problem for her?
Yeah, Senator Ernst has realized that anytime you mix the budget reconciliation process when one party in Congress tries to exclude the other and health care, you get a very, very volatile mix. Democrats learned this in 2010 when they passed the Affordable Care Act just with Democratic votes. Republicans in 2018 attempted to repeal the ACA with only Republican votes, and both parties paid a heavy price in the midterm elections. Health care is a very sensitive topic. It is best addressed in a bipartisan manner. Republicans are again trying to go it alone by reforming Medicaid without any Democratic support, and that is always risky business.
And Vaughn, you've got some new reporting about Ernst's challenger. Tell us about him.
Right, J.D. Scholten, folks may recall back in 2018, he became a familiar voice, even nationally, because he nearly upset then Congressman Steve King in then Iowa's 4th Congressional District. He lost by 3 points in the ultra-conservative district. And J.D. Scholten, he's still on the active roster for a minor league ball club in his hometown of Sioux City. He is a House member. He would go on to run in 2020 again for that same congressional seat. He lost to Randy Feenstra by a more sizable margin, but he was somebody who was on the campaign trail with a great number of those 2019-2020 Democratic presidential candidates, a popular figure in Iowa. And let's be clear here, Iowa is not an easy state for Democrats. Donald Trump won it by 13 percentage points back in November. Joni Ernst, she won her last re-election bid in 2020 by 6 points. Yet at the same time, you saw Kim Reynolds, the governor, announce that she's not running for re-election this next year. And there is a Democrat, Rob Sand, the state auditor, who is now running for that seat. Democrats are hopeful he's got a shot for the gubernatorial race. And now you're looking at J.D. Scholten, who I talked with yesterday afternoon, who said that he had been mulling this decision, but after the comments were made by the senator at that town hall, he decided to pull the trigger and get in. I want to let you look at a statement that he provided me in which he says, here's my pitch. I'm a baseball-playing, Monopoly-busting, beer-drinking, Bible-reading, working-class proud prairie populist who is a sixth-generation Iowan from right here in Sioux City. I fundamentally believe we deserve more than a GoFundMe broken healthcare system, a JBS food system, and dollar general economy. And this is where Joni Ernst, Bill Cassidy, senator in Louisiana, find themselves in this difficult position of drawing the ire of the president and knowing that there could even be a Republican primary challenge. There's still plenty of time ahead. And so for the senator from Iowa, she is already looking at a Democratic opponent, but there's still the question of whether there could be a potential primary challenge from the right of her.
Yeah, it's interesting, Carla. As was rightfully pointed out, she did win by 6 percentage points in the last election, but Trump won Iowa by more than 13 points last fall. So how vulnerable do you think she might be?
Look, she's probably not vulnerable today, but this is the midterm election in 2026 of a president's second term. Typically, that is a very vulnerable position for the party in power. So you do tend to see some surprises in those elections. If I'm prioritizing the map for Democrats today, I don't have Iowa at the top of the list, but there aren't really that many competitive states. There will be Maine, North Carolina, and then you could conceivably put Iowa in third place. So if this does become a wave election, if the environment does turn against Republicans, this is a state that could end up being in play. Today, it is still pretty solidly a Republican seat, and Senator Ernst shouldn't have much to worry about, but clearly she has provided an opening for Democrats.
Does Scholten's entry into this race, Julie, and the fact that it's getting a lot of attention, it was in all the national papers, obviously, the Des Moines Register and the local papers have it as well, but does that kind of attention say more about her than it does about him right now? Well,
the road to the majority for the Democrats runs through Iowa. They need to pick up a seat like Iowa's, and that's probably the most pick-up-able seat, as Carlos pointed out.
Did she just make it more pick-upable?
Yes, I think she did. She certainly did. Her problem is she's facing most likely a primary from the right. And so
you think that's going to happen for sure?
I think so. And I think what's happening here, unless Trump steps in, unless Trump wants to protect her, and which is why she's doing everything she can to cater to Trump. That's why she's voting for this horrible bill, obviously, which she should not be voting for. I'm not sure it's going to pass the Senate in its current iteration anyway, but she's already put her marker down that she has no problem gutting Medicaid because that's what Donald Trump wants. She's doing everything she possibly can to avoid a primary from the right. That's going to hurt her in the general. Look, Iowans are not Mississippians, right? Iowans are a lot more moderate. Even those who are Republican are not necessarily people who are going to go over the cliff for somebody who wants to gut their Medicaid, who wants to close down their rural hospitals, who is making their farms basically go bankrupt because all the money that they were spending for foreign assistance is now no more, and so that affects their farms. I mean, all of this is on Joni Ernst's back, and that's everything she has to contend with, even as she has to please Donald Trump. And so that's she's between a rock and a hard place. It's a hard place for her to be.
Vaughn, I had the California Congressman Eric Swalwell on, and I mean, not big surprise, but I asked him how he was feeling about the midterms, and he said he was feeling very good about them. But I think overall, are you getting a sense from Democrats you talk to that there are more openings than they might have thought just a few months ago?
Not necessarily. I think to the former congressman's point here is that the states in which they are going to have to battle in are exceedingly difficult. And Iowa was one of those places where, right, just last year that they were hopeful about some more pickup opportunities. And so this for the Democrats is going to largely in 2026, outside of some House races, is going to be a potential of flipping the House. For the Senate side of this is about going to be keeping the margin at least close, so that in the situation, much like this reconciliation package is going to face, that they've got to, in the Republicans' case, they can only afford to lose 3 Republican senators. And when you look at the likes of, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins is going to have her race in Maine, right? You saw the president already on social media early today attacking Rand Paul, the Kentucky senator. There's a lot of dynamics at play, but I would stop short of suggesting that Democrats are eager and excited about their prospects, at least on the Senate map in 2026. At the same time, who knows where the country will find itself 18 months from now. And there is a lot politically at play that Democrats clearly have the opportunity to run on, knowing that the Senate, the House, and the White House are all controlled by Republican majorities.
Well, point well taken. Things can change in 18 minutes, let alone 18 months. But, Carlos, let me ask you this. I wonder, given that the Joni Ernst story is moved into a 5th day, is there a warning in it for MAGA Republicans? Is there a line where, I think as Julie suggested, you can't pretend to be Donald Trump?
Look, there's only one Donald Trump. We have a governor here in Florida who tried to run a copycat campaign, and it really didn't work out for him because Donald Trump is Donald Trump, and no one will ever be able to get away with the stuff that Donald Trump gets away with. The irony here, Chris, is that a lot of these issues that some of these congressional Republicans are sacrificing their own, political popularity for, Donald Trump really doesn't prioritize. Donald Trump does not actually want to cut Medicaid. He has spoken many times about all of these programs and saying that he opposes cuts. Donald Trump is okay, as he has expressed, with raising taxes on the wealthy. But a lot of these Republicans are trying to live in both worlds, in MAGA world, and they're also still firmly committed to their Reagan roots, and you see that tension, and it is getting them into a politically tricky situation. But a lot of these swords that Republicans are falling on aren't even issues that Donald Trump actually cares about.
Vaughn Hilliard, Congressman Carlos Curbelo, Julie Roginski, thank you for a great conversation. And